Purse Strings offers an available for hire network of vetted professionals who specialize in serving women. When you have a life event that has suddenly made money a priority, you can now move forward with a whole new confidence that you're getting advice and services from savvy professionals who are uniquely equipped to serve your needs. Go to pursestrings.co and use our directory of handpicked financial professionals when you're ready to plan for retirement, navigate divorce, buy your next home, fire up your new business, and more. Go to pursestrings.co or check the link in the show notes. Now you can be financially fearless.
Thank you, fearless listeners, and go you for hitting play. Please like and subscribe as it helps us grow. Also, share this with a friend as we have to keep talking about this shit. Now let's dive in.
Coming up on today's edition of Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about, our guest is Vrinda Gupta.
We can't wait to unpack Vrinda's story about how she helped create the Chase Sapphire Reserve Visa credit card. But when she went to apply for it, she was turned down.
So what did she do? She went ahead and created her own debit card.
This sounds like a juicy story, and I can't wait to dive in and learn it all. Let's dive in and get started.
Gloria Steinem once said, "We will never solve the feminization of power until we solve the masculinity of wealth." Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen are the team at Purse Strings that will help you navigate the ins and outs of financial independence so that you can be financially fearless. This is Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about.
Hi, Vrinda. So excited to have you on the Women in Money, the shit we can't talk about podcast. Before we jump in, could you share with our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. And as we were talking about, this is so important to just uplift women financially. So really glad to be here. Yeah, so as a bit of background, I am a first-generation immigrant, and I watched my mom really struggle with the financial system. And that was the one thing she really struggled with as a feisty immigrant mother. And, I saw her anytime there was a financial decision really defer to my dad. And ultimately, that meant that he was making a lot of really important financial decisions for our family. And I started to associate money with power at a very young age. And one of the reasons that I wanted to work at Visa, which is my first job out of college, was to empower myself financially because I understood how important it was, and also to, share those learnings with the women in my life, especially my mom. And so I was working as a product manager, and I was working on a very now popular credit card called the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And I was very excited to apply for that card. And when I went to apply, I got rejected. And, I've told this story so many times. I know I'm looking at both of your faces.
Do you know why you got rejected? I mean, it must have been shocking.
That's one of the first challenges that I saw was after I got rejected, I had no idea why. And for those of us who have had that experience, and unfortunately it is disproportionately women and women of color, I 2 weeks later got a letter in the mail that said it could have been one of 5 reasons, which was just not helpful. So I think that was the first piece. Was I got rejected, had no idea what to do. It felt like this very important test that I had just never been taught how to study for, nor did I know I needed to study for it. And that was the second piece where, even though I was building these products and even though I was working at Visa and, I had a great job, I had a great education, I just felt entirely unequipped to manage my financial life and really understand the financial system. And that's kind of what led me into a rabbit hole of understanding the origins of the financial system, who it was built for, who it was not built for, and what some of the challenges are about it today.
Wow. Well, we have a lot to unpack just there. So, not everyone knows that it wasn't until 1974 when women and racial minorities could get a credit card or bank account in their own name without a male cosigner. So, It's interesting because that was in, when I was in high school, and for all of you young ladies, you've never had that issue. You've always had the ability to go out and apply for a credit card. So we're still learning about it, right? We're still learning about what it takes to really apply for and be approved for a credit card. Can you share a little bit about why they didn't approve you?
So ultimately, what ended up happening, and I hope we get to talk about this in this conversation, is I was an authorized user on my dad's credit card. And that was a way, at least we thought, was a good way to be building my credit history. And what I didn't know, and what I scream from the rooftops now, is that as women, and as anyone, but especially women, because we're 2 times as likely to be an authorized user on a parent or a partner's credit card, it is so important for you to be building credit history in your own name, because building it under someone else is just not building your credit as effectively. All it's doing is making you credit visible, which is about 10% of the entire kind of scoring and what they look for when they're looking to approve you and looking to, understand what your credit score is. And so we thought we were doing the right thing, but a lot of that is misinformation, and is one of the reasons that I love having this conversation. And a tip I give to every single woman I talk to is make sure you have a credit card in your own name and that you're building credit history in your own name. So that was what personally happened to me.
We definitely heed this message, as we see so many women who might just be an authorized user on a partner's card. And if they do decide to get divorced later, it's hard when you have no credit score and no kind of history to your name. It's harder to build that credit score. And usually the credit you do get originally is like $500 to $2,000. It's really not much. And so, for those who don't know, an authorized user is just someone who's allowed to use the card. I'm sure you have a better definition of that.
Yeah, I can share just a bit
Yeah.
more color. So, yeah, for those of us who are authorized users, but I hope after listening to this, you no longer are. But yeah, so essentially, someone else will open up a credit card under their own name, or any type of credit, or even a bank account, right? They will open up an account in their own name, and then they can designate you as someone who is tied to the account. And so you're able to use the credit card. The credit card might even have your name on it. But ultimately, there is one primary person on an account, and that primary person, one, is building their credit, but two, they're the ones who are in charge of that account. And so what we see often with thousands of women who we've worked with at Sequin is that they will come in and say, okay, well, my partner or my parent doesn't necessarily have the best credit behaviors, and now that's affecting me. What can I do? And that is a very challenging situation to be in, because you, as a secondary user, don't always even know what the APR is on that card. You don't know what all the transactions are on that card. So you just are fully kind of disintermediated from this very important tool that's creating a very important score about you. So that is kind of you being a secondary user versus being the primary who is really in charge of that account.
Yeah, great definition. And so, yeah, you want to be building this credit score under your own name. So, you can have that history and you can get those card benefits, which I know we'll kind of dive into when we talk a little bit more about Sequin. But I wanted to kind of touch on, I know you kind of got rejected from this card that you were trying to build, but I know you saw a lot of like the marketing material and different things going on inside of the credit card company, which are typically directed just towards men. Can you just kind of dive into some of these different things that you saw that are just like, you said that you found who it's built for and who built it, but I know it's for straight white men by straight white men who are now very old now.
Yes, exactly. I think there's not a better way to say that, right? The financial world was truly built with this white man who owns property, right? That's who this was built for. And when you think about the fact that women could be denied credit, could be denied bank accounts until the 70s, and actually business loans until the late 80s, which really was not that long ago. These dates just blow my mind. When you think about the fact that practice was happening, it means that these systems were not designed to serve anyone else, right? And so a lot of times what I hear is, okay, well, I don't feel confident in the financial system. I feel behind. I feel, I'm afraid of making a mistake. I have made a mistake and I didn't even know, right? In my case. And so what my learnings were from that was we all know that if you just change a law, that doesn't change the systemic and societal impacts, right? You can say, okay, this is no longer legal. However, there's so much around that. And so one of the pieces that you just mentioned, Maggie, right, is the marketing, right? And one of the stats that we found is banks are marketing more towards men than they are to women, significantly more. Less than 1% of women's media is financially related at all. And thus, we're not really having a lot of these conversations and we're not getting exposed. Other kind of pieces that I learned that were really disturbing was little girls are half as likely to receive a lesson on credit and finances than little boys by the time we get to high school. And that gap just doesn't ever really close because where are we supposed to learn about these things, right? So that's the second piece. And then the third is in terms of the actual impacts. Even today, we're seeing around credit, for example, women are carrying more high interest credit card debt. We're more likely to pay just the minimum payment, which means that we are paying so much more in credit card interest, which is some of the highest interest you're ever going to borrow. Our credit scores are kind of artificially lowered, even though we are better to lend to. So there's just so much around that. And we can get more into the factors of how credit is calculated, but the gender wage gap does make women's credit worthiness look a lot lower than it actually is. So a lot of what we talk about at Sequin and a lot of what I like to talk about, in conversations like this is also just thinking about ways to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward as it relates to your credit and your credit history. And part of that is managing credit utilization, which we can talk about in a bit, but just keeping that low and making sure that you have your best foot forward at all times.
Preach. It's everything that we say at Purse Strings. We just love that it's being said by you as well. Women need to hear these messages from all sorts of different venues. And it's because from every marketing, every TikTok, every social media platform, every commercial, women are oppressed in terms of the wage gap, the pink tax. Now we're talking credit cards. I just read an article on student loans. Women hold the lion's share of student loans, and we're paying the minimum balance, not because we're poor payers, but because we're strapped for everything that we need to do and pay for. So no judgment here at Purse Strings, no judgment at all. It's because this has been put upon us, and it's a really hard road to toe, because also, women trying to overeducate themselves, take out student loans to go to school. But then what happens when they have a baby? Someone's got to take care of the baby. So they are either working full-time or part-time and taking care of the baby. If they have a second child, there's that. And then let's not forget, there's all this caregiving that's going on by women in America taking care of their parents or aging adults in their families as well. So it's coming at us from all sides. And we do need to step forward and show women what's happening and how they can best make the best financial decisions for yourself. So I love everything you said. It aligns so well with what we're doing here at Purse Strings. So yeah, let's dig into this some more.
And so I think my listeners would be mad if I didn't ask, what are some of these tips to put your best foot forward to get some of that credit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add one piece, Barbara, to what you said. In addition to, all of those things, we see those as well. And there's actually one recently that we found that was also disturbing before we start talking about, okay, what we can do. We found that women are paying 18% more in avoidable banking fees. And so overdraft fees, late fees, penalties, which adds up to hundreds of dollars in a year. So yeah, the pink tax, the gender wage gap, all of these, different gaps when it comes to finances, caregiving, student loans. I really want to dispel this myth that this is a matter of women just not, understanding. It's very much that our lives are more expensive. We have to manage finances differently. We have different financial scenarios that we need to work around. And so it's very much not a product of, women just making mistakes. This is our lives and this is the reality. And so just being able to know those things and then be able to correct for them is, I think the really important message here.
Right. And that's what you're doing at Sequin, and that's what we're doing at Purse Strings. So great resources out there helping women understand all these nuances.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. So, so to answer your question, Maggie, so some of the tips that we give, they're tips all around money, around credit, around building wealth, but being specific on credit right now, one of the pieces that we talked at length about is not being an authorized user, right? And getting credit in your own name. A really great way to start, even though it's suboptimal, but it is very effective, is to get a product called a secured card. And essentially what a secured card is you are backing your own credit line. The line is going to be low, right? Because you are putting that money behind it, but you can get started with $250 and that is equal to your credit line. And it's a really great way to start building credit history, especially if you are credit invisible or don't really have a credit score of your own. So you only need to be on a secured card, 6 months to 12 months, and you can have a pretty decent credit score. So the, light at the end of the tunnel is near. So get credit in your own name, right? That's the first. The second, and a pro tip that we give to all of our Sequin members, is managing your credit utilization. And in the spirit of being jargon free here, so your credit utilization is essentially the percentage of your credit line that you are using at any time. So let's say I have a credit card from Chase Bank. I am using $100 of it. My overall credit line is $1,000. My credit utilization is 10% at that point, right? 100 divided by 1,000. And your credit utilization is the number 2 highest factor in calculating your credit score. And it's one that we don't talk about a lot, but is really important. What the credit issuers are looking for is that you are not hitting close to your maximum, because that might mean that you're at a risk of not paying, or in the industry, we call it defaulting. And that is a bad outcome, right? Because the credit lender is not getting paid back. And so the lower your credit utilization, the better. And the challenge is that even if you're paying in full at the end of every month, you don't know at what point of the month your credit utilization is being reported to credit bureaus. So I could be paying off in full 100% at the end of the month, but let's say my credit got reported somewhere in the middle of the month, and then my credit utilization looks artificially high. So what we say to be safe, and actually this helps a lot just with budgeting and money management as well, is pay your credit cards off every single week if possible, and pay every single card off in full again, if possible, right? And if you are in a situation where you are paying off debt, just pay as much more than the minimum as you can as you're creating your budget. And that's really going to help with your credit utilization. And those decreases can result in a huge credit score increase. At Sequin, we've seen women have credit score increases of 200 points in 2 weeks. So this can be super, super effective. And then the third tip I'll share is just being aware of your credit health. And it's so easy to kind of ostrich effect, right? Have your head in the sand and not want to see, or, the first time you're trying to maybe get into shape and you step on that scale, right? That first time is really hard. But if you make that into a practice and you make checking your credit score a part of your money ritual every week, then that's a great way to check your credit health and also make sure that there's nothing you should be disputing or there's no errors on your credit report. So you can track those fluctuations before it's too late.
Yeah, those are all great tips. And I like the one about paying every week, because that also keeps your interest down, since that piles high daily. And so, doing these small things can really make an impact really quickly. And I think that's kind of the fun thing about a credit score sometimes, is you can see it go up really quickly or down really quickly, but it's not like something that takes typically, years on end. A couple small changes, can have big impacts.
For sure.
And so back to your story of, you got denied from the card that you helped create. So you said, I'm going to go create my own card. So I'd love to hear a little bit about Sequins, how you got started, and, what makes you different.
Yeah. So, after I got rejected from the credit card I helped build, I just realized that there are just not a lot of great resources out there that truly combine education with actions and then also with the tools that you need to actually perform those actions. So what I found was because following all of these finfluencers who are amazing, right? We love so many of them and listening to podcasts. And I think one of the challenges that I personally had was I'm not really a DIY person. I really love having tools and having accountability. But then when I went to my banking partner, when I went to get credit cards, or when I went to make my investments, it felt like things were all over the place. And there was a lot of gotchas as well, right? Mm-hmm. It was, okay, if I, forget to make my credit card payment, I'm slapped with a 26% interest rate, or like something happens with my bank account and I overdraft $35, right? And all of those things just felt very kind of scary and predatory to me. And so just being able to combine that financial education with the actions along with actual financial tools was something that was really powerful for me and worked for me. And I remember taking my idea to my mom, who originally inspired me, to start this company in the first place. And she said, yeah, no one's ever broken these things down for me. And I love having this plan, but I also love that there are tools to help me execute on that plan. So the way that we talk about Sequin is actually, it's a women's finance club where you can come in, you can get access to a 12-step finance plan. And, most of us don't necessarily need a financial planner. Our finances are not so complex that we need that. And if we do, that's great. But what we found was most people and most women are not really mastering the basics here, of mastering your money, being mindful with your money, feeling confident with your credit, or being wise in the way that you're building wealth. And so we put together that plan for you, but then also we have these awesome banking tools that we've built. So the first is a high interest checking account, which we love because it means that your money is growing all the time at the same rates as some of the best high yield savings accounts out there. So we definitely recommend, managing your money in different ways, but immediately when you get your paycheck, it can come into our Sequin high interest checking and be growing at high interest rates, which is awesome. And we also give you our Sequin debit card that you can personalize the money mantra. It's coral. And I love seeing those come in. Those are really fun. And we think of those as kind of our Sequin membership card. And then in addition to that, we have a variety of credit tools that can help you do various things. So one is build credit, right? So we talk about credit utilization. I talked about doing the weekly payments. We make that super easy by sending you alerts every time your credit utilization gets high. So you don't need to be obsessively going into your accounts all the time. You can link your credit cards and we can make debt payoff plans for you. You can see how long it's going to take you to debt free. You can see how much interest you're going to be paying based off of how much monthly payment you're making as well. And so we really love just having your banking and your credit in one place, so your financial life is kind of managed. And then we also, around building wealth, help you understand, okay, what are the different retirement accounts, right? How do you invest for retirement? How do you actually think about saving for larger life goals? And then how do you have a community as well to guide you through everything? So we give options to DIY if you would like to with our Sequin tools, and we have the checklist for you. But we also do a bunch of events and workshops where you can work with a community and share your wins and, really go through kind of the more emotional aspects of going through your financial plan, but also having the tools that that aren't going to be charging you overdraft fees or anything like that. So we have a membership, you come in, and then everything is kind of unlocked for you, and you're joining this amazing community of women who are stepping into financial freedom.
I love that. That's awesome. And I know the high interest is super helpful, and if you don't have a high yield savings account, you should definitely have something that is earning you money. But I love even the little aspects of a money mantra on the card, and it's coral. It's not, the blue or the black or, the same thing you see all the time. It's very feminine, and you can tell it's everything that everyone else isn't. It's breaking that barrier of, made by men for men. It's like, no, it's made for anybody else.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, how does this work from a banking standpoint? Are you working with a bank on this? And how are you affording to pay such high interest?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a banking partner. So all of the funds are, safe, insured, et cetera, through our banking partner. They're the ones who hold the deposits. And then we are kind of the layer that you see on top and, allow you to, do all the great things that I just talked about. So we work with the banking partner. Sequin is not the bank, but you can use us for your banking. And one of the kind of dirty secrets that I learned as I was doing research on, what exactly we wanted to build was that every single bank is making money off of your deposit volume, right? So to break this down, let's say I'm banking with, one of the top 10 banks that you see when you're outside, and they will take your deposits and they'll lend them out. So the same people who are, leveraging credit cards, that money is coming from you. Mm-hmm. And the bank is the one that's earning that 26 to 30% interest. And then they're giving you 0.01%. So they're earning 26 to 30 and they're giving you 0.01%, but that is your money. And that was something that seemed really wrong to me, right? I'm giving you my money. I'm putting it here with you. And then you're making this huge profit off of it and not giving me anything, not even 1%, 0.01%. And that just, in addition to all of the other pieces that we talked about, the hidden cost of being a woman, which is what we call them at Sequin, this just felt like yet another one. It's like, okay, we're trying to make the financial system work for us, yet we're not getting any of this money back. And so we give back every single penny that we earn from our banking partner on your deposit volume. And that is your money. And that's something that we felt quite strongly about when it came to Sequin.
Yeah, I don't think everyone always knows, how that money is used when it's stored in the bank, because it is always there for you when you need to pull it out. But yeah, they are making a ton of money on it and not giving you any. And so I'm so glad, you kind of broke that barrier and said, no, we'll go back to the people who are actually using the bank.
Yeah, it's terrific. But let's talk about the difference, because we had talked about credit cards earlier, and what you have actually is a debit card. So why don't you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this kind of financial 101 conversation because I think we sometimes skip past those foundations, but it is so important to talk about. So yeah, differences between debit and credit, right? Maybe we can start there. So a debit card is essentially linked to a checking account, right? That's where your money is. And when you make a transaction, that money is pulled out of your checking account, right? So you're out that amount of money because you have actually made your payment and the money has moved. In terms of credit, essentially you are just saying an IOU, right? So you are making a payment and then your credit issuer is saying, okay, I'll spot you for, however long your statement is. And after that, if you don't pay me back, then here is the interest rate so you can still keep the money. You don't have to pay me back, but I will be charging you interest. And so that's basically the difference, right? Is your debit money is being taken out immediately, credit, the money gets taken out later or whenever you pay it back. And when you pay it back, if it's beyond the date that you agree to, then there's interest behind it. So when we were building Sequin, we thought a lot about where does your financial life start? And what we came to was that being able to help at your first checking account, right, is where the problems start. And I mentioned earlier that women are paying 18% more in banking fees. That's hundreds of dollars a year. And so right when you open up a checking account, you are already behind. And that was something that it just, I started this exploration with credit, right? Because that's what I was building. I got rejected. But the more I uncover, the more I learned and the more I became mad, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
I hear you.
so yeah, it was just, you literally as women, we're just not starting off on the same foot anywhere. It starts with our first jobs. It starts with our first bank accounts. And that to me just felt really wrong, but also felt like a place that we could really help. And so we said, let's be your checking account. If you want to link your direct deposit here, you can. It'll grow at the same rates as some of the best high yield savings accounts out there. So your money is growing. You never have to worry about overdraft late fees. We don't charge any of those. And then afterwards, you can figure out how do you want to optimize your financial life? And that's kind of the financial 12-step financial plan I was talking about around money, around credit, around wealth, and how do you prioritize those competing financial priorities, because there actually is an order, and then how do you actually take those actions? And so by having a high interest checking account, you can pay your credit cards off from it, right? You can pay your bills off from it. So we said we can be your financial hub if you want to manage all of your finances here in this safe space that's actually going to teach you about how this all works. That felt like a huge win for me. And, just to get women starting off on the same foot and, hopefully be able to make each subsequent financial decision with confidence.
Yeah, we love another tool that will help women, get up to speed, get that education, get started on the right foot. Because when you were saying that, I was thinking about my first bank account that I got and how many fees that they charged me because I didn't have a direct deposit or, $1,500 at all times in college. Wild. And so it would have been just a life savior at that point, but, still super helpful today. And so how can women get this card, become part of your community? Where should they get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to sequincard.com. And if you do sequincard.com/purse-strings, we'll give you a 40% discount on our membership, which is great. So yeah, feel free to use that link, and it's for Purse Strings listeners. And yeah, we would love to have you all be a part of our community and just start your path towards financial freedom.
That's awesome. So they can just sign up online for the card and the checking account. It's all that simple. And where are you located?
We're based in San Francisco, so heart of Silicon Valley. A little bit about our company. We are primarily invested in by women investors. 90% of our investors identify as women, which is a very big deal for those of us who are new to the venture space. It usually is less than 1%, women. Yeah, and less than 2% of venture capital goes to female founders. And so that's something that, we care very deeply about. The majority of our team identifies as women and allies. And we've just lived and breathed that mission throughout. But that being said, it's open to everyone. So if you do not identify as a woman and you still feel like these resources can be helpful for you, you are very welcome in our Sequin community.
That's awesome. Congrats on that funding as well, because like you said, 1% really gets that or of women. And so having 90% of your team identify as women is really awesome. So
I was just going to say, it just warms my heart what you're doing, and that you have all these women backing you. It's all about, us building webs of support for one another, and, shouting from the rooftops to all women that we're here for you. Purse Strings is here with free tools and resources and financial professionals. Sequin is here with a great way to get started and boosted and having, checking accounts and debit cards without being, dinged at every turn. Like you said, Maggie, it just seems, especially when you're starting out, it's tough, right? I mean, you need these large balances, or you're charged so much that your account's gone all of a sudden. They just took your money. So it's just refreshing to see that we know how hard it is to start a business, but you've persevered and you've done something really wonderful here.
Thank you so much. And right back at you, I think just having these resources and being able to talk about the importance of being empowered financially, and just knowing that if you don't know something, it's not you, it's the system. And having credible resources like Purse Strings, it's so amazing. And I feel like we're all a part of this really important movement right now. So I feel very much in kindred spirits here.
Yes, definitely, for sure. So let's, all women listening, please take some action today, whatever small step that is, either registering for the card, following someone on Instagram, but take some, true action, call a professional, because there are all these great tools and resources out there. And I'm so excited for all of us women to launch forward with our finances and really control the purse strings. So thank you so much for coming on today. All the links that we talked about will be in the show notes. And please like and subscribe, as that always helps purse strings grow and be financially fearless.
Thank you.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.
Purse Strings offers an available for hire network of vetted professionals who specialize in serving women. When you have a life event that has suddenly made money a priority, you can now move forward with a whole new confidence that you're getting advice and services from savvy professionals who are uniquely equipped to serve your needs. Go to pursestrings.co and use our directory of handpicked financial professionals when you're ready to plan for retirement, navigate divorce, buy your next home, fire up your new business, and more. Go to pursestrings.co or check the link in the show notes. Now you can be financially fearless.